Hello, I'm Esther Gidhu-Ewart. It's Tuesday, April 18th. This is Africa 54. Explosions rock the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, on Tuesday as fighting enters a fourth day despite growing international calls for an end to hostilities. We'll have in-depth coverage and analysis. An Islamic center in Minnesota holds an Interfaith Ramadan meal to celebrate the holy month and build bridges between people of different faiths. And the first NBA Academy Africa in Senegal displays skills of the best young basketball players on the continent. We'll have a report from Dakar. This and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. We begin our broadcast with a major development in the fourth consecutive day of fighting in Sudan. Rival commanders General Abdel Fattah Burhan of Sudan Armed Forces and General Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, the head of the Rapid Support Forces, a paramilitary group, have agreed to a 24-hour ceasefire that began at 6 p.m. local time Tuesday evening, following calls to each side from U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Massive explosions and gunfire echoed across Khartoum Tuesday, accompanied by the sound of warplanes flying overhead. Residents in Khartoum's neighboring cities of Omdurman and Bahri reported airstrikes that shook buildings. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says the death toll is nearing 200, with another 1,800 people injured. Humanitarian activities have been interrupted in many states due to the widespread insecurity. The World Health Organization warns that several of Khartoum's hospitals have run out of blood, transfusion equipment, intravenous fluids, and other vital medical supplies. 9 hospitals in Khartoum and 2 in Bahri have closed due to shelling and insecurity. As we mentioned, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken called the leaders of Sudan's 2 warring factions, urging them to agree to a ceasefire. Blinken spoke with leaders of the opposing sides just one day after a U.S. diplomatic convoy was fired on in Sudan. Blinken says no one was hurt, but added the incident appears to have elevated the urgency of a ceasefire.
In the calls that I had this morning with Generals Hamedi and Burhan, I made very clear that any attacks, threats, dangers posed to our diplomats were totally unacceptable. This particular incident is still being investigated in terms of understanding exactly what happened. The initial reports that we have is that it was undertaken by forces associated with the RSF. And again, I made very clear in my conversation with General Hamedi that any attacks that endanger our diplomats are totally unacceptable, and I shared the same with General Burhan.
Secretary Blinken's call to the 2 Sudanese rivals was one of many from the international community urging peace in the North African country. A communique issued Tuesday from the G7 foreign ministers meeting in Japan condemned the fighting, which they say threatens the security and safety of Sudanese civilians and undermines efforts to restore Sudan's democratic transition. For more on the impact of the Sudan fighting on residents, reporter Sid Ahmed Ibrahim spoke to people on the streets of Khartoum. Okay, we'll get to that shortly. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi says that he is ready to mediate between the warring parties in Sudan. He also affirmed that the situation in Sudan is an internal issue and his country does not support one side at the expense of the other.
I told President Salva Kiir that we are ready to mediate with our brotherly Sudanese, to reach a truce and have negotiations. This is still standing. Our contact with the Sudanese army and the rapid support forces is not ending. We are constantly reaching out to encourage them to start a ceasefire and prevent bloodshed in order to reach negotiations leading to the restoration of calm. Through our intensive calls that we are making, we're making sure of the safety and security of our forces in Sudan. Those forces are present according to a protocol between us and the Sudanese for joint training. No, our forces in Sudan have a symbolic purpose, and we are present for training purposes with our brotherly Sudanese. We are definitely not there to support one side at the expense of the other.
That was Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. For more insight into Sudan's violent and fluid situation, I'm joined live via Skype from Khartoum by Muna El-Tahir, a Sudanese human rights activist. Muna, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you. Delighted to be with you today.
Muna, we're hearing that there's shelling, there's heavy fighting at the presidential palace. Bring us up to speed on exactly what's happening there.
What happening is very much expected. There is lots of shootings there. It's simply because the rapid support force was there since ever and have been accessing the presidential bus since the revolution time. And Sudanese armies also are existed there, so both are there. And they have been fighting since the day the fighting has been broken. And it's just lots of casualties over there. No one can control over the other. And since the day the fight broke, nobody could took over the presidential palace. It's still fighting ongoing. And I don't know how this is going to be tackled and how it will end.
So, Muna, it's the fourth day of intense fighting in Khartoum especially. Are people able to venture out and buy basic food items or essential supplies?
There are other issues related to that. Actually, there is lots of lootings for the shops and for the houses. So people are not really able to go out of their houses to buy the basic need to fulfill their basic needs. Luckily, I managed to go to the nearby shop and grab a couple of stuff and keep them here. There is lots of electricity cuts, no water supply for most of the neighborhood in Khartoum, and people are suffering a lot. And the shops are not really, the shopkeepers are not keen to keep their shops open because, as I mentioned, there is lots of lootings from the arms or from the people from the army and from the rapid support force.
So, when you look at this power struggle, Muna, what is the position of Al-Burhan and Hemeti as they continue this fighting?
Frankly speaking, Esther, I don't see there is an end to this war in the near future because both are insisting on carrying on the war, and I don't see the peace initiative created by Egyptian government, by our brothers from the IGAD, faces, hospitals, and the basic needs are not met, and the army people, the soldiers are touring around, looting the houses, looting the shops, and injured people are not accessing hospitals. So the situation is as serious as nobody could imagine. And Burhan is stating very clearly, like, I'm doing this for the civilian government to take over administration. And Burhan is not saying anything about this matter. It's just saying that those people are rebellions and we have to fight against them and demolish them from the war, punish them from the war because they are rebellions and they are going against the Sudanese peace and security.
Muna, thank you very much for your insight. Muna El-Tahir is a Sudanese human rights activist. And for more on what's happening on the streets of Khartoum, a reporter, Sud Ahmed Ibrahim, has some voiceovers from Vox Pops from Sudanese people from Khartoum. Let's take a listen.
We were surprised by what happened because we didn't expect that there would be an armed clash in the middle of Khartoum. Now we are imprisoned in Khartoum in this situation. A lot of innocent civilians have died due to the current conflict. That was noticed by me as a medical staff volunteer in Al Jawad hospital, and we are trying to help those civilians Some injured were not able to be rescued because of shortage of medical staff, and we just depended on first aid for the injured. We hope this conflict stops soon and this disaster situation ends safely.
I'm from Ethiopia. You know, my country is very, very, very bad. So I'm coming to Sudan before 7 years. Now we stay without electric, without water, without bread, without anything. So we need somebody to help us, please. We can't help, yani. Nobody can help us. You know, my children now, they didn't drink, they don't eat anything. My name is Rosa Matamma, I live in Sudan. My husband he died in the river, he's going to Libya. So the government of Sudan, very, very big problem now.
I'm Ahmed, an employee of the European Union. We are living in difficult days for the third day in a row without electricity, water, or bread. I am now in a popular market where supplies are completely lacking because of the current struggle for power, and the citizens are particularly affected by it. We fear that this situation will continue in the presence of people with chronic diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, and others, who cannot obtain medicine from pharmacies or medical care from hospitals, most of which have been closed due to insecurity. We ask everyone pray to God to end the situation in Sudan.
Those were residents of Khartoum speaking to reporter Ahmed Ibrahim. And now the fighting in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, and at other sites across the country has left scores of civilians dead and derailed a shift to civilian rule, and it could destabilize the volatile region. Angela Johnston looks at what's at stake for world powers.
The world is watching as a deadly power struggle unfolds between rival military factions in Sudan.
I strongly condemn the outbreak of fighting that is taking place in Sudan.
It's a fragile situation.
The country is in a strategic location, bordering the Red Sea, the Sahel, and the Horn of Africa. And the conflict could destabilize an already volatile region. Here's what's at stake for international actors in the crisis. The White House has called for an immediate ceasefire to the fighting. Western powers, including the U.S., had swung behind a transition towards democratic elections following the overthrow of President Omar al-Bashir in 2019. After a military coup in 2021, they suspended financial support and backed a plan for a new transition and a civilian government.
Thank you very much.
Western powers also fear the potential for a Russian base on the Red Sea, which Sudanese military leaders have expressed openness to. An agreement to host a base was originally reached under Bashir, and military leaders have said it remains under review. Moscow has long sought warm water ports for its navy, and in 2020, President Vladimir Putin said he approved a proposal to set up a logistics hub in Sudan. One of the key players in the current conflict, General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, or Hemedti, visited Russia earlier this year and said Sudan had no problem with countries opening bases so long as they don't pose a threat to national security. Along with Russia, Hemedti has struck up relations with other powers such as the United Arab Emirates. It, along with fellow energy-rich power Saudi Arabia, has sought to shape events in Sudan. They see the transition away from Bashir's rule as a way to roll back Islamist influence and bolster stability in the region, along with the U.S. and Britain. Meanwhile, change-averse Egypt is the most important backer of Sudan's armed forces and Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, another key player in the current conflict. Calls for a ceasefire and a return to talks are looking bleak. The possibility of protracted fighting increases the risk for civil war and complicates an already long-running economic crisis, as well as humanitarian needs in Sudan.
Angela Johnston of Reuters filed that report. An Islamic center in Minnesota recently held an Interfaith Ramadan meal to celebrate the holy month and build bridges between people of different faiths. Mahmoud Maskad reports from Minneapolis in this story narrated by Salem Solomon.
At this mosque in Minneapolis, visitors from many faiths are joining the congregation as they break their day fast with iftar, a sundown meal. Mawli Ali, Imam of Abu Bakr as-Sadiq Islamic Center, calls it an open house.
The open house mainly means an iftar for the non-Muslims. We are in the month of Ramadan. It's a month of guidance. It's a month of generosity.
The Imam said the event was part of their effort to offer people from the community a chance to learn about Islam.
We talk about some of the misconceptions that people hear in the media, and we try to dispel some of those misconceptions and bring to the attention of those people the beauty of Islam.
Among the visitors was Rick Jorgerson, a high school principal from Redwood Falls, Minnesota, a town about 2.5 hours from Minneapolis. Jorgerson, who brought his son to the event, said he has keen interest in learning about other religions.
There were a lot of questions I had in terms of things about specific practices, beliefs, the pillars, how the iftar works, and it's been amazing just to see, to fill in those blanks of things I didn't know before. And I think it's neat to see my son with his eyes light up too when he remembers something from school and it makes sense to him.
Robin Manthe, managing director of Minnesota Kitchen Coalition, says she's grateful for the open doors of the mosque and believes that sharing food is the most effective way to find common ground and build connections among people of different religions.
I think the story is always that the more we know about each other and the more times we sit down together and eat, food is a powerful thing, the closer we feel. And there are a lot of Muslims in Minneapolis, and these are our neighbors.
Ramadan ends with Eid al-Fitr, a feast that is one of the major holidays for Muslims around the world. For Mahmoud Mas'ade in Minneapolis, Salim Solomon, VOA News.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come, the first NBA Academy Africa is held in Senegal. We'll be right back.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, heavy fighting erupts in the Sudanese capital as rival generals battle for control of the country. What issues are at the heart of the conflict? Is Sudan headed for an all-out civil war? Join me, Haiti Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
In other news, new data revealed Tuesday that South African business confidence slipped further in March, with power blackouts, rising interest rates and lower share prices on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. The nation's energy minister says that power outages are costing more than $50 million in lost output each day. Swiss prosecutors have filed a crimes against humanity charge against Ousmane Sonko, who was interior minister in the government of Gambia's former dictator Yahya Jammeh. The office of the Swiss Attorney General says Sonko participated, ordered, facilitated, and all failed to prevent killings, torture, rape, and numerous unlawful detentions. And Tunisian authorities shuttered the offices of Islamist-inspired opposition party Ennahda on Tuesday, just one day after arresting its leader Rachid Ghannouchi. Police raided Ennahda party headquarters showing a judicial warrant and evacuated all personnel to start a search that will likely take days. The first NBA Academy Africa in Senegal recently displayed the skills of the best young basketball players on the continent. Sedina Abagai reports from Dakar, and Jackson Vunganyi narrates.
The NBA Academy Africa that recently ended in Senegal is a hot new showcase for Africa's young basketball talent, and the players are anxious to learn how to play the game at a high level.
But I learned a lot from the game, you know. I got a lot of veterans in my team that taught me a lot on the court. You know, I learned about patience and all that on the court. It was good. And other players, I think they learned a lot from the game.
Like Churchill Abbas, several NBA Academy Africa residents had their first professional experience through the Basketball Africa League's Elevate program. a program through which the BAL discovers young people with extraordinary potential trained by the NBA Academy Africa. The academy allows young African basketball players to live their dream, show off their talent, and nurture the ambition of a career at the highest level.
It is an academy for us to help us have a good future. It gives us solutions, offers to go to the United States. We are here to try to evolve every day and to have opportunities to play in the NBA.
The NBA Academy Africa is not just about sports, it is also a school of life. Residents are not only prepared to become champions, but men with values and a solid background.
I live like a pro. Practice school. Here you learn how to be a pro, how to live in community, how to socialize, how to respect each other, because there are so many different cultures, everyone from different countries. So that requires a good discipline to be here.
The NBA Academy Africa wants to become a major player in training champions for Africa and the world.
We are working with young Africans to give them the training they need to become professionals. And the idea is that in the long term, there will be no difference between a young person who leaves our academy and a young person who has been discovered in the United States or in Europe. That's the idea, and we are getting there because right now we have the best players. Some players here are the best in the whole world, and they are here, they are African, trained and developed in Africa, and one day they'll make our continent proud.
The first NBA Academy Showcase in Senegal brought together 71 junior hopefuls from 26 different nationalities. They were able to show their abilities in front of recruiters, National Collegiate Athletic Association coaches, and NBA observers. The NBA Academy Africa has already placed several players in the G League, the official minor league basketball organization of the NBA. And now their objective is to place players in the NBA from the academy. For Saidina Abagay, I'm Jackson Vunganyi, VOA Africa.
Weight loss surgery seems like an ideal and conventional way to lose weight. VOA Health reporter Mkamiti Kibayasi joins us with details. Hello, Mkamiti.
Hello, Esther. According to experts, weight loss surgery changes a person's shape as well as function of their digestive system. Some people do it for beauty or medical conditions related to obesity. With so many surgical weight loss options available today, finding the right option can be overwhelming. For more insight into the different types of surgeries, benefits, and side effects, Dr. Theophilus Wangata of Viva Serenity joins me via Skype in Nairobi. Welcome, Dr. Theo.
Thank you, Kamiti Kibayasi.
Tell us what weight loss surgery is and how it works.
Weight loss surgery is basically surgery to lose weight, and it works by reducing the size of the stomach. It also works by bypassing portions of the intestine, so you absorb less food, and over time you lose weight.
Is there a difference between weight loss surgery and cosmetic surgery?
Yes, Kamiti, there is a huge difference between weight loss surgery and cosmetic surgery. Weight loss surgery is surgery that is aimed for losing weight. And one of the reasons why people go through the weight loss surgery is because of medical conditions such as diabetes, hypertension, cardiac issues like coronary heart diseases, liver, fatty liver, and other medical conditions. While cosmetic surgery, on the other hand, is mostly for shaping of the body, and it is just on the surface, removing the extra fat, such as liposuction.
Dr. Theo, what are the side effects after surgery?
Most people after weight loss surgery would need to be on a liquid diet for a week or two, and then after that, continue with a normal diet after a period of time. So the main side effect is the stomach is small, so you eat less. There's a tendency to feel like you want to vomit. and a bit of acidity or heartburn. But over time, all these side effects wear out and you start eating a normal meal like anyone else.
And how long does it take to recover after surgery?
For most people, within a week after the surgery, they are able to go back to their normal life. They are able to do what they used to do before, but it takes up to about 1.5 to 2 months to be able to eat the normal diet as before.
So are there certain foods the patient won't be able to eat, or if so, for how long?
There are certain foods that the patient will not be able to eat at the beginning. And as Viva Serenity, what we do is we ensure that patients are on a liquid diet at the beginning. And over time, they are able to go into purees and then soft foods. Usually the diet that is not good at the beginning is hard foods, solid foods, and also very acidic foods. But over time, people who've gone through weight loss surgery are able to eat just a normal diet like everyone else. Also to mention, alcohol and smoking is not recommended immediately after the surgery.
And how much it costs for each surgery, for example, cosmetic surgery or weight loss surgery?
So cosmetic surgery is a little more expensive because it's cosmetic in nature, and it depends on how somebody wants a body changed. The bariatric surgery, on the other hand, depends on which country you are. If you're in Europe or the US, it could be as much as 30 to 35,000 US dollars. In Africa, like South Africa, Kenya, it's a little cheaper, and India is the more cost-effective one because of the volumes of patients that they see.
Dr. Wangata, we appreciate your insight. That's Dr. Theophilus Wangata of Viva Serenity in Kenya, speaking to us from Nairobi. Back to you, Esther.
And thank you very much, Mkamiti. Be sure to watch Africa 54's health reports every Tuesday right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.